There are millions and millions and millions of children who sleep amazingly, not on our schedule.
Totally.
And that's fine. We don't know about those millions and millions and millions of children because they don't reach out to us. But for those families who do need the help, we have strategies to help fix it.
Welcome back and happy Wednesday, Beck.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. We are back.
Happy Sleepy D's Day. That's right, everyone. Today is Sleep Detectives, meaning that we are answering your real-life baby sleep questions in real time. We do not discuss these ahead of time.
No, keep us
Beck,
on our
you've
toes.
got some on, you've got some on your side of the screen. I've got some on mine. We put up a weekly question box on our socials, and some really great ones came through. Do you want to start or me?
I'll let you start because I actually haven't got mine up. So let me trawl my things.
Surprise.
Yes, this is a common theme.
Surprise. All right. Well, you're going to have to show your ability to multitask while you get your questions up and answer the ones I'm going to fire at you.
Pressure.
Okay. How do I prepare my 11-month-old for an overseas trip that's 2 hours behind Melbourne time? Ashley, I'm happy to take this one because I've just done it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I still know my answer. Okay.
Well, we can confer.
Okay, cool. You say, you're the travel expert.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, jet setter.
Yeah.
But we've just done this, and I've done variations of this since mine were very, very little. First and foremost, I do nothing in terms of changing time zones in the week leading up. I often see that amongst the forums and the chat that if you try and get onto the new time zone in the lead up, then you kind of hit the ground running. I personally avoid that at all costs. What I find is that then you go into a big travel day, jet lag, and a huge amount of change, change in accommodation, sensory, overwhelm, like everything in an already tired state because you've been you're already jet lagged. So what I do is I actually just...
and anxious because it may not have worked at home and you're like, oh my God.
Exactly. I think you have to have the world's easiest sleeper, world's easiest sleeper for that to just lock in from home. Meanwhile, you're looking for passports, you're still packing. Does everyone have bathers? Like the mental load is enough already. So I actually do the opposite. I lay really low in terms of sleep. I prioritize great day naps, great bedtimes, great sleep totals, so that then travel day, where even the best laid plans can go totally out the window, baby doesn't fall asleep in the travel pram. Baby gets woken just in time to just fallen asleep, and now you have to go through to security. All of these things happen. So you want to start that day on the best wicket. So prioritize great sleep in the lead up. Have a bit of a plan. Take all your creature comforts. I used to take portable white noise for the airport because it's very light and bright. I used to always take the baby Zen yo-yo pram. And I used to put a snooze shade, I think it was called, over the top so that I could make it nice and dark. I tried my best to keep to the normal feeds, but you have to have a degree of flexibility. When you get to the location, even if it is 2 a.m. by the time you get there, I always, and I know you do the same, Beck, you do a mini bedtime routine, which includes a quick bath or a shower, some sort of water element, and you do your steps of your bedtime routine, even if it's the Reader's Digest version that you're just trying to get through as quick as possible. But definitely include a water element. Airplanes are gross, wash everything off, but also it's what's going to signal to your baby's brain that this isn't just another nap, that this is the bedtime routine, and what comes after the bedtime routine, a great night's sleep, even if the timings are wonky and everyone's overtired and overstimulated. Then, again, I take the creature comforts. I have the porta cot with a sheet that has been washed in our detergent. I have the sleeping bag from home. I have books from home, all of that jazz. And then the key is that the next morning you either, depending on which way the timing goes, you either set your alarm and you start the day at 7, even if it feels like 5 a.m., if there's a 2-hour difference. You get up, food, light, socialization, and you just crack on. Or
Mhm.
if it goes the other way, where everyone's wanting to wake at 5 a.m., thinking at 7 a.m.,
Yeah.
you just keep it really low stimulation. It's not about they must go back to sleep. Even if you hang out in bed together in the dark,
Mhm.
and just keep it really chill as much as
Yeah.
possible, and try and just delay all the action until closer to 7 a.m. local time. Then it's blinds open, then it's the full breastfeed or a bottle, then it's okay, we're going for breakfast and to see the
Mm.
sights. And you'll watch it improve in 30-minute, 45-minute increments over the next few days. For me, 2 hours takes about 3 days, 3 to 4 days, and then I think, everyone's on track. And the
Mm.
other thing is that you might have big, busy days. You might be leaving the Melbourne winter, which means that you're probably going somewhere sunny, and that's going to really help your baby's internal body clock and circadian rhythm pick up on the new pattern. I think it's harder
Yeah.
when you go somewhere wintry and dark.
Oh, 100%. And if you've got a little one that's on a one nap schedule, then there are times when you can split that nap into two, if you need to sort of be able to get through the day. So
Yeah.
you have an option up your sleeve. The key would be to make sure that the first nap is shorter so that you can
Yes.
preserve sleep pressure for nap two. But then all of a sudden you'll get back onto your regular programming and everything will be sorted. You'll be back to your one nap schedule for sure.
Yeah. And if you've got a 3-nap baby and you're thinking, I don't want to be in the hotel room for 3 naps, nap 1 and nap 3, perfect, on the go, in the pram, in the carrier, especially if
yeah.
they're a bit tired, use that
Yeah.
to your advantage. I used to always prioritize coming back up to the room for the big one. And everyone's
Yeah,
tired.
same.
Everyone's tired
Yeah.
anyway. And then if you need to do bedtime and you're out and they fall asleep in the pram, like there is a degree of flexibility and fun.
Oh, yeah.
We don't
Absolutely.
want you to feel chained to the hotel room at all.
100%.
Nap Trapped is brought to you by Camp Snooze. Sometimes you reach a point where you're running on empty and you just need a clear plan and someone in your corner. That's what Camp Snooze is for. It's our 2-week guided intensive in a small group so you get daily support to make real changes quickly. Schedules, settling plans, and day-by-day guidance all tailored to your baby. Structured, focused, and built for parents who are ready to commit to change. If that's you, come and join us. Visit joinsnooze.com for upcoming intakes. Okay, we're back. When do you resettle awake and when do you feed? 6-month-old wakes at around 11:30 and 3 a.m.
Oh. Okay. So if
I
we're
feel
working on
there's kind of
that would
nothing wrong with
be
that.
there's kind of nothing wrong with that unless you've been in that pattern for a really long time and you've
And
got your
then it's
4-hourly
stuck.
feeds through the day, then
Yep.
it becomes habitual because technically we work to a 4-hour scheduling rhythm for feeds through the day and overnight. But very quickly our little ones sort of start to anticipate these 4-hourly feeds and they will encourage baby to wake at the 4-hour mark regardless of if they're genuinely hungry or not. And so there are times that we have to sort of test the friendship to see whether or not that was actually a genuine hunger-related waking or if it wasn't. And if you feel like that 11 o'clock feed has been there for quite some time, then your job really would be just to resettle it until they're asleep and then see what happens next. And it might just be as easy as shifting it for one sleep cycle. So instead of, waking at 11 o'clock, they then, if you've resettled it once, on a Wednesday night, on the Thursday night, they might wake at 11:30. And then, or potentially what can sometimes happen is they are resettled at 11 p.m. and then they don't wake until 3. In which case, you know that the 11 o'clock waking was just habitual rather than genuine hunger-related waking, and that actually they can wake and resettle themselves multiple times until 3 a.m., in which case you would actually sort of use that as your new anchor. So you would drop that 11 o'clock milk feed, you would anchor in 3 a.m. as your new time frame to resettle all wakings until, and then go from there.
And then you're officially on one feed in that scenario too.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is sometimes helpful at that age of 6 months. If we can get one great feed happening somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., it means you've officially dropped the second feed, because if we work to 4 hourly and you're feeding at 2, like that's you can't. It's too close to the 7 a.m. feed, we shut the milk bar at 5:30 a.m. So if they miss that cutoff, they just have to wait for the best feed of their life at 7 a.m. But
it's like the sign on the door, like just being flicked over, like when you walk to a cafe and they've like just and like that feeling of feeling like a bit of a dunce, like when you get to the door and you're like, I have to do the awkward turnaround.
Missed it. 5:31. But I think it's also worth us just highlighting it is really common for it to become ritualized. And we will often tell families that when you are resettling that deeply ingrained 11:30, and it's sometimes more like 10:30, it can sometimes feel harder than you expect because they are very used to waking for a feed. The thing to fall back on is that has this been just locked in for quite a while, rinse and repeat these timings. Are your feeds appropriately spaced throughout the day, or are we trying to do something that isn't being backed up or supported by the day work? So we would have you on 4-hourly full feeds, breast or bottle, doesn't matter, during the day, so that then we can confidently nudge that one out. And we will also tell families that the reason why we can sit here with so much confidence and say, you're just going to resettle until asleep and then feed at the next waking, is that it works. It works. It can feel really hard in the moment, and then you'll watch that baby sleep either another sleep cycle or another few sleep cycles. And it's just because we see it all the time that we know that that's what will transpire, even if it feels tricky in the moment.
Yeah. And then it's appropriate. So for babies that are gaining weight and meeting their milestones and all the things, it is appropriate to start weaning night feeds to support great calories in through the day and to support an appetite for solids as well.
Yes.
So we look at shifting calories from the night back into the day. It doesn't necessarily mean that a 6-month-old has to give up all feeds through the night. It just means that we need to look at making sure that we're supporting the day so that we can get great stretches of sleep overnight. Otherwise, you kind of have a bit of a holding pattern of it's a 24-hour bar and we keep doing the same thing and hoping for a different outcome and, vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Lots of calories overnight,
Yeah, you can just feel stuck. You just feel stuck, and we want to always keep things moving forward. Okay, when to start trimming nap 1? 9-month-old on OG schedule, which is 9:30 till 11 and 2 till 3:30 for naps. Nap 2 linking doesn't always happen.
That would probably be one of the first signs that I would look to move to a short, long nap, because we definitely want to try and keep that second nap being of equal length or longer than the first, because there are times when the nap 1 will be longer, the second one will be shorter, but there's less sleep going into the second half of the day, which means that our little ones can then sometimes become a little overtired going into bedtime. That overtiredness causes elevated levels of cortisol, which creates wakings overnight, can also stem to early rising, which is then
and then they want to take a nice long first nap to catch up, and then you
rinse
again,
and repeat.
Speaking of getting stuck. I would be the same. We will always move a family straight onto the OG schedule when we first make the 3 to 2 nap transition, just while we get a lay of the land. We don't like to chop and change. We want to offer always the maximum amount of sleep, but we also want to provide the great spacing for milk feeds and solids to be redistributed, because that changes a bit when with the 3 to 2 nap drop on our schedules. And I'm with you. The most common sign we then look for is that nap 2 just isn't consolidating. Despite our absolute best efforts, nap training, cot time, all the things, it's just not happening. It just means that nap 1 has taken too much of the sleep. Yes, robbed us of sleep. And by trimming it, we give sleep pressure back to nap 2. That doesn't mean that just because we've trimmed nap 1, will that magically just on day 1 mean a really great long second nap? It still often requires a little bit of work. It's the hardest nap, I think, for most families that we work with. But it just means that you can take confidence knowing, I actually had to wake them. I know they've still got sleep in the tank. This is just a matter of redistributing sleep totals and them knowing, oh, this is what I meant to do at this time of the day. The other way we would see it, not that this is the question, but some babies just have a really strong natural preference for a short long. So if the question was flipped and you're like, I cannot get that first nap any longer than 45 minutes, that's also normal, and we would then go in with a short long. That's the other scenario we see.
Plenty of families that will come at us because maybe not come at us as such, but they'll be like thinking to themselves,
brace for impact, Beck.
Well, my baby takes a long short and everything is totally fine. And that is totally fine. There are plenty of babies out there that do a long short and their nights are totally fine and everything is hunky-dory. And if that's the case, we're not talking to you.
We're fixing sleep problems, but what you've done, Beck, is you explained the why. It's not just because we like this schedule or it worked better for us and it looks good on paper. It's because we do see, I mean, between us, we've got 20 years of experience doing this, is that often when you then have overnight issues or early rising crop up, we don't know if this family does, but it's in order to understand why we would pivot to a short long versus long short, is that we want to fill out the second half of the day for all those reasons that you were just talking about. Sorry, someone was just trying to ring me. We want to fill out the second half of the day so that they go into the night well rested, and without even having to bring up the topic of a sleep training technique, you may find that your overnight issues and early rising resolves, or at least improves. And that is what it is to work holistically, yes, but also with some sleep science. That's why.
Yeah, there's always a why. Absolutely.
There's always a why.
And it makes sense when you're in the thick of things. And do you know what? I think it's so liberating to understand the why. Like not just, we're just going to make a schedule change and then just hope for the best and not actually understand why you're doing it or the signs to see that it is improving and that it's making a big difference, and like how that particular schedule can improve many areas of sleep and future-proof you as well. Yeah. I think when I had a consult with a client, with a family yesterday, and they had previously worked with a sleep consultant, and I'm not knocking the other sleep consultant, but it was very clear that while I was talking, they were like dialed in to absolutely everything that I was saying, because they were like, oh, yes. Oh my gosh. I never thought of that. Like all of those sorts of moments of like, it's like the penny drops like time and time again, because once you understand a little bit of this science behind sleep and why things happen the way that they do, there is a tendency to then sort of look at things differently. So it's not just this emotional pull to like, oh, we're going to throw everything at it. I don't know why, but we are. And like that whole feeling of like, it's not working, but actually understanding that this could take a couple of days to lock in because we're working with the internal clock, circadian rhythm, sleep pressure, like all of those things take a little bit of time. It's not just a magic fix. And that's quite often the vibe that I get from families who have used other sleep consultants. Again, I don't want to knock anyone, but you know, when you read a schedule, from such and such, and like there's no context behind it, like you're like, I'm going to give that a whirl and hope for the best, or.
Yeah, because I think also we appreciate how much time, energy, and sort of how hard it is to make change when you've already been working on sleep probably for a really long time. It can sometimes feel like we might just breeze in and be like, everything you're doing out the window, my way or the highway. And if you don't provide context, it's really challenging to make change. You and I talk about all the time. You and I don't like change.
Yeah.
Don't make us do anything.
No.
So we absolutely appreciate that. And I think that is something, I mean, this is the whole reason around the pod originally, right? Is that we wanted to be able to have somewhere to actually have the conversation in long form rather than a 30-second Instagram reel, to explain the method behind our madness. And not every baby needs the madness or the method.
No, that's right. And I think one of those things where I learned very early on is like there are millions and millions and millions of children who sleep amazingly, not on our schedule.
Totally.
And that's fine. And we don't know about those millions and millions and millions of children because they don't reach out to us. But for those families who do need the help, we have strategies to help fix it.
I actually got a DM on TikTok this week that said, "Hi Sally, the hill that I will die on is that your schedules work." And I was like, that is
cool.
such a nice, is such a nice message, especially on TikTok where I'm like, speaking of bracing for impact, I'm like, what hill are you going to die on? What are you going to tell me and troll me about? And I was like, oh, great. I'm so glad it's landed in the right person's lap. And if you're curious as to why we would use these timings, hopefully that has explained it a little bit. All right, I'll do one more and then I'll throw it to you. Okay, would love to know how to transition from a quick patting to sleep to actual self-settling. I feel like this could almost be a whole podcast episode.
Transition from a quick pat to sleep to, I'd love to be able to say the quick answer, but really for us, it's really not about a quick answer. It's about the setup. It's about setting the stage. Like we are big believers in if you start a sleep training technique, you need to be able to finish it. You need to be, the only way to do that is with absolute confidence. And so we use the day setting up great milk feeds, great nap timings, great sleep pressure, not overtired, not undertired, not overstimulated, great meals. There is so much that goes into the day so that when you get to bedtime and you want to take padding out of the mix, then you use a technique that you can fall back on with absolute confidence because it's boiled down to the fact that your little one is using the padding to fall asleep and you no longer want to pat to fall asleep. So they've got to find their own way of self-settling. And it's about giving them the space and opportunity to do that in whatever technique you choose. And if it doesn't feel like it's necessarily working within a few minutes, you need to be able to have the confidence to still follow through so that they can, in fact, pick up what you're putting down. And so I wish there was like a way to, like a really quick way to explain that, but they're really, it's built on confidence. It's about seeing something through. It's finding a technique that resonates with your parenting style, but also matches your child's temperament and the challenge at hand. There's so many factors that go into it. And I think in terms of like, if you want to make it easy for yourself, then sometimes it's a case of let us help you do the work so that you've got the confidence behind you to be able to follow through in a way that feels right for your family and sustainable. I think that was a really long answer to what could potentially be a very
No, I actually really like it because
simple
it's
question.
the true answer, because we could easily say, well, it makes no sense, but we could easily say, oh, you just do Ferber, or you're just going to sit in the room, or you're just going to do a pat every 2 minutes, not all the way to sleep. And whilst those answers are part of the answer, in order for you and I to confidently say that, truly we focus on the days. Because there's every chance that if you just heard us say, okay, well, you're just going to sit in the room, and then you're thinking, this is taking 2 hours of hard crying. Why isn't this working? But we don't actually know why. Is it just a matter of this baby being really tired and not yet knowing how to self-settle? Or is it because they didn't complete their final feed and that dinner was a little bit too heavy, or that we've got some windy type foods, or that their wake window was really long, or that there are so many contributing factors.
Exactly.
And so it's never about just the technique. For me, the quick answer in terms of technique is that any kind of sleep training, which is what she's asking about, which is how do I stop patting to sleep and teach independent sleep is my guess, is you do less of what you're currently doing. And so if you're starting from the place of patting, it's actually a really great position to start with because you're already doing significantly less than other hands-on things. And that's not to say that the other hands-on associations are bad, but there would be other weaning steps if you wanted to go down that path. We might go from rocking all the way to sleep to then patting in your arms to then patting in the cot, and then we're at the patting stage. Whereas if you're already patting, the next stage is relatively hands-off. But from there's a few choose your own adventure techniques in order to take the next step to go from a baby being patted to sleep to making that transition from awake to asleep on their own. And so the technique options are out there, but in order for you and I to confidently say, okay, great, now you're just going to do this, and any tears involved are just a matter of this baby not yet knowing how to fall asleep independently, we actually focus on the day. And I think that is a huge point of difference. Even though sleep consultants, teaching self-settling, sleep training, using behavioural techniques where appropriate, absolutely the technique is a big part of the conversation. We would be doing you a disservice if we didn't look at the whole thing. But essentially, you're going to do less of what you're currently doing so that your baby makes the transition from awake to asleep on their own.
And then you're going to be repeating that when they wake.
All night long. Yeah, until asleep and all night long for any and all wakings that are not a scheduled overnight feed. It's so easy, yet so complicated.
Yeah, that's right. But you will reap the rewards.
Yeah. All right, over to you. What have you got?
Okay, so glad you asked. Okay. Twins, 8 months, share a room. How do you manage when they disturb each other?
Let them. The old let them theory.
The old let them theory.
I think it's better to do it now, where they just have to sort of get used to waking each other up, and you kind of try to treat them as one baby so that they either build a higher tolerance and threshold for being disturbed or woken by the other, or you kind of get them in sync where they start to do similar wakings. Then you can just do your one technique and then they sort of fall into sync. I do find that there is usually one easier sleeper and one that's a little bit more tricksy. And I think it's more understandably parental anxiety of like, one baby waking is hard enough. Please do not wake the other. I've just got them back to sleep. But I think the sooner they just sort of learn to coexist, usually the smoother it is later on.
Yeah, I think if you're doing sleep work, it's inevitable that one's going to wake and potentially wake the other. However, they're like you see time and time again, you kind of like expect the worst, and anything less than that is a bonus. And quite often the baby B doesn't wake, so like, and then they might wake later and baby A doesn't. It's just one of those things. They tend to tune out like once they're, once they know mum and dad are on the scene, like from an early age, they tend to just tune out to their other noise. But I think it's important to be able to.
It actually surprises me how they can do that.
But I'm a big believer in like multiples being on the same schedule so that then you can start ruling out a lot of like, or if there are wakings overnight, there is clarity around the wakings and like why they are happening, because if they're not on the same schedules, then they tend to have different patterns overnight, and you do want to minimize how many times you are getting up for a feed or to resettle and so forth. So I'm a big believer in scheduling for twins, just because it's exhausting having one, let alone having twins or triplets. You know what I mean? Like you you absolutely need to look after yourselves in these situations, and the more sleep you can get overnight, the better. Not only that, they've got a permanent playmate, so they are probably exhausting each other, with just gazing into each other's eyes and trying to, pull dummies out of each other's mouths and all those sorts of things. Like it's
slipping notes through the cot bars.
Help me.
Here's the plot. Here's how we're going to escape. I used to, very early on, used to dabble with, do we go and sleep train? Like, do we take the tricksy one out and sleep train them and then bring them back in? But you're sort of always left with that inevitable, at some point, due to a tooth, due to a bad dream, due to sickness, one of them's going to wake, whether they're sleep trained or not. And if it's a totally foreign concept for the other one to hear the other baby, then you're kind of stuck in that position anyway. So I just think if we just start how we intend to finish, then you just let them be exposed to that ruckus early on.
Yeah, I have been known to separate them if one is really behind in the sleep skills. Probably not so much now, but
Also, not everyone just has a spare room to go and put the other, or a walk-in, or an ensuite where you can. So sometimes your hands are tired as well. In which case, decision made. No problem from our end either.
Also, I think it comes down to experience. Like when I was probably in the game a lot, many years ago, I think experience teaches you that because you have the data behind you, that actually it's going to be fine, and you need to back them and back mum and dad and all that. That's where your mantra of you're unflappable leader comes into play, doesn't it? Because it's just the experience behind us now that gives us the confidence to say, you'll be fine. They'll be fine. It'll be okay.
And here are the realistic expectations. Baby A will absolutely wake baby B, or baby B will definitely, chances are it's okay. This is what you're going to do for both of them. And then the next night, oh, look, baby B slept through baby A's 10-minute blip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Next. That's you, Beck.
Please hold. Okay. If 11-month-old is waking at 6, but the desired wake-up time is 6:30, when should nap 1 be?
Nap 1 gets anchored in regardless of the wake-up time. As in, we would work to a clock-based nap 1, not a wake window based on the fluctuating 6:37 a.m. So I guess the answer is twofold. At 11 months, your nap is probably going to be at 9:45 a.m. But we're happy with a wake up somewhere between 6 and 7 on our schedules. We would then implement and continue to implement the early rise protocol. We would actually delay getting up until 7:45. 7:45, I wish. 7, maybe 6:45 at the latest, at the earliest. God, my brain is not working with
it's Friday.
With the timings.
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. We're recording on a Friday. Thanks for showing that this is all smoke and mirrors, Beck.
Oops.
So we would delay getting up until 7, regardless, or 6:45 at the earliest. That's what I was trying to say. So you delay getting up. We don't change anything, and then it's into the cot at 9:45, because if you bring that nap earlier, you can accidentally reinforce 6 a.m., which becomes 5:50 very quickly. So we just lock in.
Yeah.
And delay.
I think
delay to encourage a later rise.
Yeah, there's almost 2 questions in that one question, which is...
Like, how do I get a later rise, and what time is nap 1 at 11 months?
Yeah. And exactly what you're saying, like to get that later rise, you really have to overcorrect to get to 7 o'clock. That's why the early rise protocol is in there, so that you can start reshaping it. And then the later nap helps to sort of secure it slightly later. So like Sally said, you've just got to absolutely follow the early rise protocol, keep that nap 9:45, not earlier.
Because here's the other thing. If the nap comes earlier, not only does that cause a bit of kerfuffle for your 6 a.m., but does that not often lead to an early, like your whole day's brought earlier. So maybe you've then either got an early to bed, earlier to rise scenario that you feel locked in, or your naps are finishing early because of an earlier nap one, but then you're stretching a big wake window to try and get to, let's say, a 7:30 bedtime that you're hoping will do the right thing. And then ironically, a big wake window can lead to overtiredness, which can cause an early rise. So we look at the whole 24 hours. How do we set you up for success?
And this was definitely not part of the question, but it is something that we see all the time, which is, my baby's nap finished short. Nap 2 finished at 2:30. Oh my gosh, 4 hours. We've got to put him to bed at 6:30. We're going to have a little one that wakes up at 5:30. And time again, we see little ones still waking at their normal time frame of 20 past, 6 to start their day. So they've actually pumped out like 13 hours, which isn't something that we necessarily subscribe to.
It's your short-term solution. No, it's the Band-Aid fix on that in that incidence. But you're right. I absolutely understand the anxiety, particularly if you've been working so hard and you've had an early rise and that feels like the Achilles heel. But it just usually doesn't work like that. We are trying to mitigate overtiredness. And speaking of hills that I will die on the hill that overtiredness is real.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, there's such a what's the word? Oh my God, help me out, Sally.
Like
there's
a trend?
A word. A trend. This is it. That overtiredness doesn't exist. Wow.
You can't convince me. Beck, I'm 37 and I get overtired.
Yeah.
You should have seen me. Like, we took a night flight back from Vietnam. Children slept so well. I slept terribly. Fine. That's the role of the mother, but a sandwich between two sleeping children. I get the worst restless legs, that jolt you just when you're trying to fall asleep. I am cranky. I can't fall asleep and stay asleep even then when I get home. Like, you cannot convince me otherwise.
Yeah,
I'm not emotionally able to regulate the way that I can on not enough not enough sleep. So why would we expect a baby or toddler who's had a huge wake window stretch not to then either cry harder or to not be interested in dinner because they're tired, or maybe they've got restless legs and they can't tell us?
I mean, I even know myself, like come Friday, like I start the day, like I'm just not naturally a morning person, but I've taught myself to be. And so I'm up at like 5:30 most mornings. But Fridays, I'm up at 4:45. And then, I'm either in the canteen or one of the kids have got, footy somewhere else. And so you're driving back and it's a late night. And sometimes it's 10:30, 11 o'clock before I'm in bed and trying to fall asleep. And I actually feel so sick by the end of it because I feel like it's been such a big week. I feel sick. I can barely like string 2 sentences together. And I'm just tapping out. But for the life of me, that's the night, like the night that you are desperate to fall asleep and have a good night's sleep. That's always the one where you're like tossing and turning, trying so hard, watching the clock count down. Like it's just so much harder. So yeah. Overtiredness for me is a very real thing that plays out in babies, and you can see it. You can see it.
You can hear it too.
You can hear it.
You can hear it. Anyway, so that's our soapbox on overtiredness.
Do we have time for one more?
Yeah, let's do it. What you got?
Did you have one or do you want me to?
Go for it. I've got a few, but I can save them for another episode. So hit me.
This is quite a good one. Does staying in the room while baby self-settles have an impact, or will there be something down the line?
Oh.
I'm guessing she's saying...
what do you mean by something down the line?
So I'm guessing she's saying, is it okay to be in the room while baby self-settles, or is it going to impact their sleep, or is something going to happen later on down the line?
Is it like, is it going to come back and bite me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
There's just no rules. I think it can work so beautifully for families. And also, I mean, you and I literally did a masterclass on this last week, which was, it's not a problem for us unless it's a problem for you. And we can't predict problems. Sometimes you and I have the anecdotal evidence based on experience to say, oh, look, sometimes, I'm just using this as an example, but sometimes if you're stuck sitting in the room at, let's say, 10 months, it it can be harder to get yourself out when you decide at the age of 2 that you can't sit in the room because you're going to have another baby, but you just can cross that bridge if and when you get there. I just think this is where, like, if it's working for you, it's working.
And thresholds are different.
Thresholds are different. Thresholds are different. That's a really important factor. And some families actually really want to stay in the room while they fall asleep. And if that's important to you, then you just, again, you cross that bridge if and when you get there. If it starts to feel longer, you can manage it and have conversations with an older baby. Equally, if you think, I don't want to stay in here, or I've liked it enough, but I no longer want to do it, then you can pivot. Personally, I mean, I've got 2 children, so it would be so hard for me, and they don't share a room. It would be really hard for me to sit with one, particularly when they were younger, and have the other one just sort of fending for themselves while I did bedtime sitting in the room. Also, temperament plays a role. Mine would have just laughed, stared, tried to play games, really overstimulated, really easily engaged, and I don't think it would have been productive. Whereas some babies, it just works, and you sit in the room for 10 minutes and they drift off to sleep, and it's lovely.
Yeah, I sit in the same camp, I guess, in terms of answering the question, in terms of like, can it sometimes, can things arise later on down the track? Yes, they can. Things that can sometimes happen is if you're able to sit in the room with them and they fall asleep readily and easily and it's all hunky-dory, fantastic. And that can often be like from a younger age, but then they might hit a point where they're pulling to stand and now they can see you and now they're like pointing and trying to grab and all the things. And now all of a sudden the settling time starts to sort of, extend, get later. And then they're really focused on needing you for support and so you're starting to do more. So you might going over for a cuddle, you might start, using a mantra phrase. There's more things that start coming into play, and then all of a sudden you've got night wakings as well.
And then
you're laying them back down, stimulation.
Back up, and 45 minutes, and then we're talking an hour.
Yeah. Or you were at the door, like you were able to sit in a chair by the door and scroll through your phone as they're falling asleep, but now you're sitting right beside them again, and now you're patting, you're doing a lot more,
and you're feeling stuck.
In those scenarios, that's when a lot of families who work with us and they choose something like the Sleep Lady Shuffle or the Vanishing Chair or the gradual removal, whatever you want to call it, in terms of like moving
Camping
stage
out
by stage away from the cot towards the door and then outside of the door. A lot of our families get to the point where baby or toddler is settling quite well at the door and they're reluctant to make the next move outside of the door. And this is where, when we work with families, we try and encourage them to take that next step to future-proof themselves. Yeah. So, that they don't have to take that next step, but we would encourage them to, because it kind of, it is still part of the sleep training technique to actually be able to settle from outside of the room. There is, the ultimate goal is to get out of the room, to future-proof yourself, and just to tie that whole little ability to self-settle in it, like the last 5%, like they're able to be in the cot, settling with you, practically doing nothing. It's just presence. So they're able to do 95% of the work by themselves. I think trying to take that next step to encourage them to fall asleep without smelling and seeing you in the room, I think is a good one to test out and give them the opportunity to strengthen. Yeah.
I think this is also an example, and you said it earlier, where it's like, and then people are going to come for us to say, I was able to do X and it never caused an issue. Absolutely, there are families that would be able to sit in the room and then that baby smashes out 11 to 12 hours. Or maybe you have a quick overnight resettle, you sit in the room for 5 minutes and they drift back off. I also had a consult yesterday with a 2.5-year-old, and we'd worked together at 8 or 9 months, worked like a dream, independent sleeper up until about 17 days ago, and is now needing someone in the room. At bedtime, it takes 20 minutes. So they don't technically have an issue with that. Like it's no big drama for them. But he's then waking and it's taking 2 hours for them to sit in the chair for him to go back to sleep, only for him to then wake up 45 minutes later and need the whole thing again. And then they end up co-sleeping, which is not sustainable or their preference as a family. So it can be where a sleep association does then become habitualized overnight or between sleep cycles. But you and I can't necessarily pick which baby is going to do it. We work with the trickier sleepers where these things do crop up. So that's why we would give the caveat of yes, but also unless that happens, you don't have to change. But there's something to consider if you're curious about how else this could look or what to look out for if I feel like this is no longer working for us.
Correct. My goodness.
All right. That was a great episode. We always love doing these ones, and we will continue to put out our question box. There were also a few that came through to our DMs with longer ones, and we're actually going to do some case studies based on those. So if you haven't heard your question, don't panic. We really do try to get through the majority of them across a few episodes. But if you can't wait for help, we also really appreciate that, and that is why both of us are over here saying, hey, you don't have to wait. Come and work with us. Come and find us via social media or our websites, and we would absolutely love to help you.
Yes, we would love to have the chance to sort your sleep out. Let's get you the sleep that you need.
All right, everyone. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.